I had a chance to speak to an attorney. I am prone to misspeaking because I am not an attorney. You may have been wondering why someone like me in Northeast Ohio that lives in relatively okay driving distance of Hudson, Ohio, has not gone to the main JoAnn in Hudson, Ohio. And there are a few reasons for that. One of the main reasons is every time I think I'll just venture out on a day or time after work that I'm going to just pop on over, get a lay of the land, see how it feels in the main JoAnn, which is massive if you have never been there, by the way. I do believe, if I remember correctly, it is about 100,000 square feet of inventory and all the shopping awesomeness. So it really has been a little bit tough for me to not be able to go simply because of road conditions. And anytime that I have plans and I can't make it over there, or I'm at work, the weather is beautiful, but then I go to leave work and they're predicting awful conditions, and the smart thing is to just go home. So that is reason number one. The second reason we haven't gone on our little road trip is, well, I was in a very awkward position of not knowing what I could and could not talk about if I were to do a video dedicated to JoAnn and what's going on in Hudson, because at my workplace, which is in Northeast Ohio, a bit outside of Cleveland, but still not that far from Hudson, maybe about 35-40 minutes. And I sit very near human resources in my office when I am in the office, more specifically our recruiting department. So I had overheard conversations where we had been in touch with their human resource department down, well, I guess in Hudson, their corporate headquarters. And so I already knew that at least the Hudson JoAnn was closing. And in some of these conversations, I wasn't 100% clear on what was going on. So I am glad that I held off, because initially it sounded like JoAnn for sure, like all across the board, was closing. And as you probably already know by now, they are closing 500 of the 800 stores. And I'm glad I held off, because I was actually secretly hoping that one of the recruiters was misspeaking and saying that they were closing when really there was just going to be some layoffs, but that they were going to still stay in business, which sort of is the case. And I just didn't have all of the information. So that is the second big reason why I haven't said anything. But at least taking the time to hold off, that gave me a little bit of an opportunity to wait until I had a chance to speak to an attorney that knows corporate law a hell of a lot better than I do. He was able to kind of help me understand what a corporate bankruptcy looks like, because the only experience I have ever had or have heard of is personal bankruptcy. Without getting too far into the woods of personal bankruptcy, there are two options, which is restructuring debt and your credit and everything like that. And then there's the type where it's like a total bankruptcy, where you might lose a house or any other assets that you own or have financed, and that gets consumed by a trust. But it did not sound like either of those quite neatly fit what was going on with the JoAnn bankruptcy currently and what happened in the past, which that was a bit of a debt restructure and a credit limit and sort of all of that stuff. And then there was like the publicly owned going to a private owned sort of a corporation. That's still, I don't totally understand, other than it was explained to me by this attorney that simply meant that there was an individual or a corporation that decided to own and operate JoAnn. I just wanted to hop on very quickly to correct myself, because when I went to go look up the square footage of the Hudson JoAnn store itself, I came across an article that actually stated that it was not that a private entity had come in to run JoAnn or had purchased it back then. What had actually happened is the stock of JoAnn had gone so low for a sustained amount of time that the NASDAQ actually took it off of being publicly traded. So it essentially went back to being privately operated, just the way it was before it went to public stock option. That is essentially more or less in a nutshell what happened last year with the original bankruptcy, which I'm sure there's more to it, but that's just kind of the headline for us layperson, to try to understand what is actually going on now, because that's what I was hoping was going on now, was another credit kind of limit in place and maybe some more restructuring, consolidation, that sort of thing. But as we have heard, a lot of the things flying around the internet and listening to some of the proceedings, Sewing Report Live does a pretty good job of including that courtroom proceeding audio in her stuff, so I will make sure that is linked down below. But if you have been paying attention, it doesn't sound like this bankruptcy is going to be satisfied simply by reducing credit or consolidating any of that outstanding credit or debts or anything like that. So essentially what was explained to me is that when there is a corporate bankruptcy, there are so many things that can happen, which is why there is so much uncertainty. And unfortunately, there still is not a finite answer. I think we are all hoping, or at least I am selfishly hoping, that by closing 500 stores, that the remaining 300 stores will somehow make it along with this massive distribution center in Hudson, Ohio, and that, maybe they'll beef up their online presence some more, update their website and their app, because I think we can all agree that the shopping experience online with JoAnn is abysmal at best, and it really can just depend on any given day what the website or the app feels like doing, if it's going to let you make your purchase, if it's going to let you adjust your cart at all. It has just been awful. And I would say probably JoAnn is the worst shopping experience, at least from what I have personally had happen to me. Michael's and Hobby Lobby are also not great experiences for an online consumer, and I'm really hoping that they're looking at what's going on and seeing, why is this still an issue with JoAnn? Where are their shortcomings? What they can do better? Because even though my local Michael's is not great and the yarn department is not the best, I would at least like to see, Michael's and Hobby Lobby make that effort to go, hey, this is a problem. We need to get with the times. And yes, shopping for sewing and crafts are largely tactile experiences, but there are still a lot of things that consumers are willing to purchase online, whether it's supplies we've used in the past or anything like that. And I really think if they take the time to revamp their website and their apps, it's going to give them a much better outlook in the future. I don't know what the financial health is of either Michael's or Hobby Lobby at this time, but that is one of the things that we're hoping is going to happen with JoAnn, is that they have this opportunity to at least have those 300 stores operate. So now that the one in Hudson is closing, which I am super shocked by because it's literally attached to the main distribution center, and I would think that it would be easier and more efficient to just get stock over there. But if they're hurting for main distribution center space and footprint in the warehouse, I can also see that as well, as sad as it's going to be for me. Because I still remember being a kid and my grandmother would just take me to that JoAnn so many times, and just so many memories. The one by work is also closing down. So the next nearest one is going to be in Mentor, Ohio, which is probably about a 40 to 45 minute drive from my work, because there's not really a good straight shot from my work. And then from home, it's probably about an hour. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't mapped it out. I'm just basing this off of probably the last time I went to Mentor from home. I believe in my mind it was about an hour, or at least I would budget for about an hour for leaving the house if I was trying to get to Mentor on time for anything. That's something that we are hoping is going to happen. However, because the proceedings are not finalized, this attorney was also able to explain there's still a lot in the air, and that's why there are going to be employee shortages in the stores and, corporate, which I don't know how that's going to feel on our end as a consumer, but because our company is Ohio-based, we are seeing those applications coming in from former JoAnn's or current JoAnn employees that are looking to jump ship, and I kind of don't blame them, having been in positions where my workplace has either shut down or had impending layoffs, where I've been do I want to stay for maybe a severance, maybe not get a severance, or get a severance that may not last that long, when I might have a job offer in front of me that is, a consistent paycheck for, obviously we can't say for eternity, but for the foreseeable future. So that's a lot of stuff going on right now. Also, I cannot imagine going into a workplace, particularly at the store level, where for some reason the general public thinks it's okay to ask, an associate level employee or store manager or anything like that about the bankruptcy, if they know what's going on, if they're scared, if they're this or that. Of course they're scared. Of course they didn't know until the rest of us knew how bad it really was. They might go, oh, that's weird that we're having stocking issues, and kind of maybe wonder in the back of their minds. But a lot of them might be like us, where they're like, oh, well, sometimes these supply chain issues happen or whatever. And they've been going along about their day. And I think that has to be incredibly draining, because I've been on the other side of having been in a layoff or knowing that a workplace of mine is shutting down in a certain amount of time, that I had, at the time, I didn't really think of it as a luxury, but it's a luxury that I was able to go home and not really be bothered, other than, maybe my friends might ask me how I'm doing, and, they're my friends, so I can cry and be upset or whatever the case is. But they're trying to get through the workday and, just be normal. I think it is so incredibly insensitive to ask a store worker, what's going on? Did they know what their next steps are? They may not even know. They are just waiting until they know the right thing. And I think the kindest thing that we can do as consumers of JoAnn's or customers, that we just go in and we have a positive attitude. We're not bitching and moaning about, why isn't there anyone to help me? Because I have been actually recently at the one by work where a lady was just complaining and moaning and no one's helping me. And now, granted, I had seen at least 3 or 4 employees at this point, so I put this on kind of the lady for not even trying to look for other employees. But the poor cashier, as I'm trying to check out, just doesn't know what to tell her. And I just don't understand how just so unkind that people can be. So if you are determined to go to your JoAnn one last time, just keep that please in the back of your mind, that they are human too. If they want to talk about it, fine, but I personally would not bring it up. That's just me. But that's also because I've been in those shoes, and it just has to suck. It's so draining to keep going to work when you know there is an end, and just not knowing what's going to happen next, to be honest. So that was a little bit of a side tangent to what this attorney had told me, is that the bankruptcy proceedings are not finalized. So there's a lot that can happen in a corporate bankruptcy. There's a lot of what's called piecemealing that can happen, meaning there can be buyers that simply want the property. So that may be what has happened in the instances of those 500 stores, is that someone wanted those specific properties. It could be that they are so far behind on their rent if they're in, say, a strip mall or something like that, where JoAnn may not own that property, that they have been called to say, hey, get out. It could be that. It could be that someone may come in and buy up part of the company and only operate part of it. We also know that there was Gordon Brothers, who was potentially looking to completely liquidate JoAnn if they are the final buyer of everything, essentially. And that would be all the inventory, fabric, yarn, everything down to the store fixtures would be up for sale at that point, especially when it gets near the end. Unfortunately, that is the state right now, that it is still very uncertain. There are not 100% finite answers until everything is finalized. We don't know the absolute certain future of JoAnn or not. All we can do is keep hoping that those 300 stores and maybe moving to a more online distribution model might help weather the storm. And I know that didn't really help conclude everything, but I hope that answered at least enough questions in the back of your mind. So if you have any other questions on what this actually means, or even if you want to know a little bit more of the corporate bankruptcy details in general of how that might work, please let me know down in the comments, because this is an attorney that I have access to and would be willing to answer, at least to me personally, some of the questions that you may have. Keep in mind that I am not an attorney. I am simply transferring the message, and I am prone to misspeaking because I am not an attorney. And please, as I mentioned before, if you are so inclined to shop some of the deals and sales at a JoAnn that may be closing, do so with kindness and just understanding for the remaining employees. you might need to be a little bit more patient and understanding of what they are going through or staffing issues in general, because I do feel like that is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges in the next, month or so, or however long these closing sales can go. And of course, the weather by me has been absolute trash and not worth going out in. So I cannot speak to any of the sales that happened at JoAnn and Hudson, or if they've started yet, simply because the roads were trash all weekend long and it just simply was not worth it. There are things I am interested in, so hopefully we do get to make that run out there together at some point soon and scope out. I'm looking specifically for 24/7 cotton yarn from Lion Brand, and that's not like a huge, high priority thing, because I'll still be able to get it once the Hudson JoAnn closes. I can still get my hands on Lion Brand either directly through Lion Brand or from other retailers. Also, there was another thing in particular that I wanted to look at for viability of a DIY yarn storage solution that I had seen. It so far does not look like that would go on sale, and I question whether it would go on any store closing clearance, being that, attached to the main distribution center. It is one of the things that is not eligible for coupon as a standard, which I know is really strange. It doesn't happen very often. And even when I looked at similar items at Michael's and Hobby Lobby, they also didn't seem to be something that is coupon eligible or discount eligible. So that's kind of unfortunate, but at least if for some reason it doesn't go on major sale or anything like that, I can still get, pieces, parts, and figure it out from other retailers. That's about all I have for you today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share it with a friend. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but I did open up one level of membership. This is simply a small token of your gratitude, which is probably the highest compliment I can take. And it's simply because I wanted it to be affordable. There will be other membership levels available in the future, but I at least wanted to get it going for now so I can help keep sponsorships off of this channel. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of being sold to every 5 minutes and then ads and more, sponsorship spots. It's just so much. So that is my goal, is keeping sponsorships off. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, I will have more control over the ads and keep those also at a better rate. So hopefully in the meantime, they're not too obnoxious. Just know that going forward, I do have a plan that, we can try to keep this as easy and less silly as possible, because I don't know, I'm just so sick of sponsored videos. Anyway, with that, thank you for considering all of those things. And if you want to hang out a little bit longer, YouTube thinks you might like this video over here, and I cannot wait to hang out with you even longer.